Thanks for being here, everybody. I want this to be useful, very specific, but I also want to be able to be me. So I put some pieces together. I've called this Take the Guesswork Out of Leadership, using Clifton strengths to lead and win. And so what I want to do is, this is a critical topic. It's about stepping into what if you didn't have to use guesswork. You could use data to target your leadership and your investment. What's really possible? And so this is a topic that's timely. So I want to kind of tell you why this is a conversation that matters. I want to tell you why this conversation matters to me. And then I want to take some Clifton strengths work and apply it and show you real time how you can use it to answer some questions that are key for team leaders right now. And then we're going to wrap it all together. And Katie and I are just going to take Q&A. So if you actually know your Clifton strengths and you're like, listen, I want to talk about that, you can do that. You're going to be able to drop it into the chat, and we're going to take live questions. But please, as we go, as you have thoughts, Katie's in there managing it. Thanks so much, Katie. Katie is a colleague and a partner and friend. She's also a Gallup certified Clifton strengths coach, so she can chime in as needed as well. I recently got a new car. My lease was up, and I do consulting for Jeep, and so I'm always getting Jeeps. And driving home, I remembered how when I first got my Grand Cherokee, now, sorry, Grand Cherokee, this isn't great. When I first got my Grand Cherokee 3 years ago and picked it up, driving home, I remembered that feeling of being bulletproof. You know that feeling? I kind of like a lease, just so you know, because I'm not the guy who wants to deal with the unexpected payments and the car, and when the car breaks down and things like that. I love the feeling of a new car. It's trustworthy, it's solid. I'm hunting for excuses to drive around. On the third day, I'm driving home from doing errands, and all of a sudden, on the dash of my car, just a flash, so much so that I didn't think it was real, the check engine light came on the car. And I was like, it's a brand new, high-end Jeep Grand Cherokee. What's the deal? Then it happened again. Do you know that feeling of anxiety that kicks in when the check engine light in your car, shows up and it comes on? You're like, oh, what? And suddenly, it flashed again. The car almost sputtered and died, and then didn't, and I drove home. Now, poorly installed fuel pump. It was a factory defect. Got it fixed. But I've never forgotten that feeling. And what is it about the check engine light? See, it tells you something's wrong, but not what. And think about this. When the light on the need fuel button lights up, you don't feel the same level of panic. It's not the same. Why are they different? The difference is because one is a dashboard and one is a dummy light. When it comes to your leadership and investing in your future, you need a dashboard, not a dummy light. You need the specifics. You need to know. See, the difference is you know what the need is. When the fuel gauge says low, you get fuel. When the oil pressure's low, you get oil. But too many times when I'm dealing with and meeting leaders, they're going, oh yeah, I care about my team and I can tell when something's going on, and often they can, and that's terrific. But many times, they only have a sense of it. Something's up, but I don't really know what. And then they wonder why they're starting to get frustrated. They're wondering, can they drive the car home? And especially with new teams. A lot of you are working in places where you might have new team members that just joined in the last year. You've never even met in person. Some of you have recruited people you've never met in person. And at first, you're very optimistic. It's the new car driving home. What are the first signs that you're like, is that the check engine light? What if you didn't need to guess? What could you accomplish if you didn't have to guess who your team is and what they need? Like the guessing game in the picture. We're supposed to figure out who they are by their hands. You have to guess it out. Too often, that's what we're doing. That's what's actually happening day to day. We are going, okay, I feel this. Something's up. This worked with an old employee. I'll try this. This worked with another employee. I'll try that. What could you accomplish? Think about how much time you spend, and if maybe you're not a team leader, maybe you're an individual, or maybe you work for somebody else. How much time do you think about, what does my boss want? What do they need from me? What does it take to make them happy? What could you accomplish if your boss was clear? If you knew, they communicated what they brought and what they need? What could you accomplish if you didn't have to guess what your team is and what they need. Leading from Clifton's strengths is going to let you target your leadership to data, not aspirations. Now, I went back and forth on this very specific thing of like, I actually would say not hope, but aspirations felt nicer because people like hope. But too often, this is what we're doing. We're giving our time, our attention, our investment based on hoping that it will have a result, not based on the data of if you invest here, you will get a result there. Clifton Strengths lets you target your leadership to data, not aspirations. And like I said, I want to talk about why this is important for you, why it matters to me. Recruiting has never been more difficult. In some areas, it's incredibly hard to find a job. In others, it is a talent desert. Like if you are a talented engineer, planner, strategizer, some of you, like you can name your price. Recruiting quality talent has never been more challenging. If you know and you're picking through resumes out there on Indeed and you're trying to fill, I know people who are making 2 and 3 offers before they get anywhere. Recruiting has never been more challenging. And here's the other thing. Even the fact they're getting to hire, budgets are so tight that most people are like, you're gonna get one shot to get somebody before the economy changes. You're gonna get one chance. You haven't got a do-over. There's not much margin. When the economy roars back, they've got to be ready. I actually have clients who told, I one today, she's like, she's the one who gave me this quote. You shouldn't have to lay in bed at night wondering if you bet on the wrong horse. You shouldn't have to. Man, I hope this works. Come on, lucky 7. Is that any way to lead? But when you're relying on just the gut sense of, well, something's wrong, but I don't know what, it's like hoping you can figure out what's wrong with your car by watching the check engine light flash. What if you could do it different? Because this is a big question that leaders are asking right now. See, people, you know that quote, people are our greatest resources. Maybe you've been known to say it yourself. Maybe others say it a lot with you. And you're like, yes, people are our greatest resource. That could be a value. But let's be really honest. People are your greatest expense. They cost you the most. It is the single largest line item in your company. Why do you think the stock market goes crazy when corporations announce layoffs? Because they know that you just took out expense, which puts all the money straight to profit. Dividends and shares go up. People are your greatest expense. So why don't we treat them like our greatest resources? We don't protect them. We don't keep them. We don't make sure the right one's in the right seat. And specifically with turnover. When you don't treat people like the resource they are, your turnover goes up. But I know people are like, well, yeah, I have turnover, but it's okay. I just factor it in. You should want the least amount of turnover as possible. I have teams that will quote me their turnover numbers. Well, it's only this much. It's only that bad. I was working a couple years back with a large nonprofit in the Bay Area in Palo Alto. And the head of development, who really had no business leading a team. I was like, you're crazy. There's no business at all. She had a development goal for the year, and she'd had 10 staff that she basically hated. And she would grind them and run them out. She was always on them, nonstop, and asking a million questions. And so she came to me at the end of the year, and I was like, because the coach, they'd asked me to come in and coach her. And they said, Mike, talk to her about the turnover thing. And I was like, hey, listen, let's talk about your turnover. She had nearly 75% turnover on a staff in a single fiscal year. Her response to me was, yeah, that doesn't matter. My goal was X million dollars. I brought in X million dollars. And I did it with 75% turnover. And she was proud. I said, what have you left on the table? What could you have done if you hadn't had to replace employees? But most leaders fail to factor in lost productivity and training by putting the wrong people in the wrong seats. According to SHRM, January 2021, to replace a single individual, it takes 6 to 9 months of salary on top of the base salary for each employee. That means that if someone on your staff is making $60,000, guess what? Have you got a spare $30,000 to $45,000 lying around? Because that's how that works. In lost productivity and lost time, you are going to have to spend an extra $30,000 to $45,000. What's hilarious to me is that I talked to somebody last week who, I'm onboarding my new trainee and the boss thinks they'll be ready in 4 weeks. Did you know that it's basically minimum 6 months for an employee to really contribute, to really start kind of getting in to where it is? And in fact, we're going to talk at the end specifically about the beats between an employee's first day on a team or in a company and month 6, because there's certain things that are things that are running through their heads. This conversation is critical, and you need to know the talent that needs to be in the right seat, because if you get it wrong, it's expensive. But here's the other thing. What if you want to keep talent? What does good talent really want and need? I was talking to a former client yesterday that asked me to check in, chief creative director for a firm in San Diego, a design firm, and they've got a new Google project landing up, and it's just 21 is going to be just blasting for them. And they're ramping as fast as they can and making multiple offers, trying to get designers and project managers. And he said to me 3 times this statement. He was like, what does good talent really want? He said, the days of offering ping pong free lunch and our creative culture as a pitch are over. He's like, we're just kind of hoping. What do they really, really want? And see, do you know? If you're a team leader, do you know why your talent is staying? There's a guy named Andy Stanley on one of his leadership podcasts years ago. He said something brilliant. If you don't know why it's working, you can't fix it when it's broken. If you don't know why your talent is there, they're not going to stick around. You're going to lose them ultimately. But most of the time we go to the squeaky wheel. Oh, they don't require much management. Employees are our greatest resource. So let's invest in the most dysfunctional resource. I'll say to clients all day long, never invest in coaching or training in an actively disengaged employee. It is a waste of your money and time. Your resources need to go into making the good great and making the high performers beyond high performance to measure what's capable. What does the good talent really want? Just so you know, when talent leaves, Gallup's research says there's the top 2 reasons talent leaves, especially talent under the age of under Gen Xers. So my age group and under, if you're a workforce, it's millennial, Gen Z, and the like. There's 2 reasons. Now, when talented people leave startups that I work with, the number one thing I hear from them is, well, they've left for more money. That is completely wrong. Money doesn't even make the top of the list. The number one reason why people quit jobs for multiple years running now, according to Gallup research, number 1, people don't quit companies, they quit their boss. Bad leadership. You can work for the greatest organization in the world with the greatest cause, and if your leader doesn't see you and doesn't let you be you, you're gonna be gone. You're done. You're out of there long term. You might stick around until something better shows up, but until you do leave, everyday's survival. So 1, leader, first of all, do you see your talent? Are you expressing recognition, the work they're doing? Are you talking about what they need? Second thing, and this is especially true, this even is more true for millennial and Gen Z. Gallup did a great study called Millennials in the Workplace, which now needs to be rewritten, obviously, because Gen Z has entered the workforce. But they literally went back and asked these same questions of 60 years of people, going back to traditionalists, post-World War II, to baby boomers, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, wanting to know what they wanted. Especially what they found was they were even more likely to, when quitting their jobs, here's the big thing, quitting their jobs because no development plan. They couldn't see where they were going. If you're a small firm, just so you know, I'm seeing this a lot in the last 2 or 3 months, talking to leaders, that organizations of less than 100 employees, the younger your staff in their career, the more they're going, man, there's only 3 seats between me and the owner. Where's my future? If you don't have the seats to move them into, they suddenly say, well, then if I'm not going to get promotion and I'm not going to get profit sharing, will I get skills? Will I get prestige? Will I get connections? Will I get education that will keep me? Investing, by the way, in something like Clifton Strengths could conceivably keep employees up to a year to 2 longer. This is why turnover goes down. Number one reason people quit jobs, the good talent leaves because their leaders don't see them. Second, no development. But what do they need and want? If you're around me very much, you know that one of my mottos is, healthy people ask for what they need. I had a coach named Rhonda years ago, and this was Rhonda's mantra. And she was awesome. She let me steal it, and I've kind of spread it far and wide. Healthy people ask for what they need. Now, that's a great word to live by. And so if you want to be healthy, you don't hint, you don't assume, you ask for what you need. A sign that you're healthy, kind of like the fruit of a healthy life, is that you're asking. You're not waiting. You're not sitting back. Healthy people ask for what they need is the thing to live by. But here's the thing. What if you don't know what you need? What if you don't know? I didn't know. I don't know if there's a more helpless place to be than not knowing what you need. Especially when you're trying to figure out your life. I was 28, 29 years old in San Diego, California, and I worked for Hewlett Packard. I was 5 years into a career at HP. I was an international contracts negotiator. I lived in Coronado, California, 2 blocks from the ocean. I could hear the beach. I could hear the surf at night. I was commuting to Asia on the company's dime. I was making more money than I've ever made before. And I was miserable. I was 350 pounds. I was splotchy. My face looked gray, like clay half the time. I was an insomniac and had everything you're supposed to want as a professional at that time and was miserable. And you could have asked me, well, Mike, what do you need to be performing? What do you need to want? And I'd be like, I would have laughed in their face. I mean, truly laughed in their face. Because I didn't know. You know what? All I knew was I wanted to be numb. More money meant more time and to buy food and watch Netflix and let the TV wash the day away. Like, that's all I wanted. I didn't know what I needed. I had no language. I had no concept of what I needed. Now, I kind of knew what I brought. I could negotiate contracts. I could write details. I could really do the hard conversation. I was good at the international negotiation, and it was killing me. If you'd asked me what it would take to be more high performing, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. So much for healthy people ask what they need. I was what we call, when I work with clients, I was being led by myself because my boss didn't know how to give me the words. I had 5 bosses in 2 years. None of them knew how to make me healthy, but it took one look at me. I mean, guys, I hunted for my passport photo. It was so bad. I was bloated and looked like a toad, and I had to go to Hong Kong, and they were kind of worried about me traveling. When you're almost 350 pounds, you're pretty scary looking. And I remember, I think Josh, who's on this call, Josh remembers me in those days. He knew me back then. Like, I remember being that big that when I came back in years later and had started losing weight, the passport control agent would congratulate me for my health and all the progress I'd made. Like, legitimately. But I didn't know. And I didn't have a boss who knew. And I was just grinding along. So what do you do when you don't know what you need and you don't know what you bring? You do the same thing. Some of you are out there and you look fine, but secretly you know you're in a grind. Why? Because you're doing the same thing. And you're not doing it because you need to do it. You're doing it because it's what you know. Because you don't know what you need. Your team, if they're stuck in loops, they don't know what they bring and they don't know what they need. Clifton Strengths gives data around what you bring and what you need. And if you don't know, one of my favorite quotes from Gary John Bishop is, we will too often, give up what we want for the thing we know. And that's what I did. I was stuck in a rut. And I thought I was going to be okay and it was all fine. I thought I could just go on. Until one day, pulling off I-15 at Bernardo Center Drive, heading to the HP office, I got a glimpse of my face. Just a disaster in the mirror. And I just started crying. I was like, it just felt hopeless and stuck, and I was broken. And I thought it was just a couple of tears. I hadn't cried probably in years at that point. And ultimately, something inside of me snapped. I probably had an ugly face cry, in case you're wondering. And in that moment, though, I finally figured out one thing I needed, which was a different life. But I had no idea how. I didn't know what to do. And so I kind of went about going, well, man, something's got to change. Excitingly enough, my buddy Andrew, who's actually on this call, he works with Trellis and some of the crew in Orange County. Andrew and I were part of a nonprofit in San Diego, and Clifton Strengths had just come out. And we were basically dependent on 200 plus volunteers for our very survival. And the thought was put out, could we increase volunteer stickiness if volunteers were mobilized and pointed basically based on their talents and strengths? And this new tool, Clifton Strengths, came out. It was the language we used, and they loved it. People not only found ways to volunteer more effectively, but you had confidence in what you said. There was more team cohesion. And I had never taken strengths, but I was facilitating. You know how that is. You're facilitating something, sharing the lead. My first time taking strengths, I don't know about you, maybe you had the reaction that a lot of people do. You read your profile and you loved it. But maybe you're like me. I read my profile and I hated it. Why? Because this is what I saw. When I took Clifton Strengths and I looked at my insight guide, this was my results. Communication, command, activator, woo, positivity. Not bad, you'd say. Those are pretty great. Whatever. I got a new cup today. Got my Clifton Strengths on it. But you know what I saw? I read my report and was angry because I'd read all the data about how sound it was. This is what I read. Motor mouth, judgmental, careless, foolish, attention seeker. Motor mouth, my entire life I've been told I talk too much. When I do strengths tune-ups, when I do Clifton Strengths tune-ups for teams, I open with the story of being fired from Ellis's IGA in Patton, Maine for talking too much to the customers. Judgmental, I've had friends tell me off and storm out of my house. Careless, I can prove my activator. I can write blog posts, read them backwards to hunt for typos and still miss it. My whole life, instead of thinking I was blind to proofreading and not being able to see it because I don't have the detail eye, I was just told I was careless. And if I was more intentional, I could have better grammar and syntax. Foolish. Yep, my optimism, it was always going to be okay. I was the kid waiting by the door for the friends who were never on time and leave you there for 4 hours when you're in junior high. And my mom's like, why don't you give up? Oh no, it's going to be okay. Ah, you're foolish. You're too optimistic. Attention seeker. Woo. I was always the guy who wanted to be on stage. I sang my first solo on Easter Sunday 40 years ago this weekend. So I was told, like most of you, that the key to my professional success was scooping out all of these things, to not be any of this. And I was pretty convinced. I was at HP and successful. Surely I'd scooped that out. And then I saw this. And it just made me mad. But then I started thinking, what if there was nothing to scoop out? What if instead it was about shaping what was already in? And a question just started running through my head that ended up being my mantra for years. What was I really capable of if these really were my strengths? I wasn't saying I was sure. I wasn't going to say I owned them. But what was I capable of? If these were my strengths, how far could I go with them? So, I have Activator. I started changing my life. I turned things around, changed it up pretty quick. And from that time, almost a year later, I had quit my job at HP, packed up and moved to Minneapolis, was living on my savings October of 2004. And I basically volunteered to help teach Clifton Strengths for nonprofits all across the country. We would do these leadership weekends where you talk about vision and they would have projects and everybody take Clifton Strengths. And two of us, though, would sit in the corners of a room and just do one-on-one after one-on-one after one-on-one. And you could see 20 people in a weekend. Now, I studied up and I understood and I was deep diving all things strengths at this point. But I really learned by listening to these people. I remember this one woman at this nonprofit for kids. She had a large volunteer group and she was looking at her profile and she walked in. I'm like, tell me about your strengths. And all of a sudden she burst into tears. She was like, I don't like my volunteers the same. I'm a terrible leader. I was like, okay, wait. Here's a tissue. Let's unpack this. She was all torn up because she did not like all of her volunteers. She had Maximizer. Just so you know, when it comes Maximizers and influencing theme, they often need to partner with developers. Developers teach fundamentals. Maximizers take good and make it great. The hard part for her was, she's like, I'm supposed to like all the volunteers. I'm supposed to lead them well. Well, she took it serious. For her, she wasn't interested in working with people who were there to get community service hours or just phoning in their time because their kids were involved. And she was beating herself up. And I'm like, it's okay to have high standards. You don't have to be mean, but it's okay to have high standards. Maximizers, their gift is not fundamentals. It's taking good and making it great. But I also remember other people literally telling me, this is great, but I almost wish you'd never come. Because you showing me my strengths is like declaring freedom to the enslaved. Yeah, they're hosting this, but the reality is, my boss isn't here. He doesn't care about my themes. She doesn't care. She only cares about her agenda. I began to get driven to say, what if leaders were asking this question? What are we capable of if these really are our strengths? What do we bring and what do we need? This was the question occupying my mind. I was doing this all across the country for about a year and a half, almost like 2006, 2007. And then a key thing occurred. I got my student loans kicked in again, and I needed to pay them. So I got ready to go back to corporate America. I was done with my volunteer work, cleared my head, about to go back. But I got a call from a nonprofit in Detroit who said, hey, we're a sports and tutoring organization in the inner city. We have 2,000 kids in intramurals. We really liked your strengths talk. What about leadership? Could you help us with that? Could you implement this? And I was like, they're like, do you do consulting? And I was like, what's a consultant? Let's do that. And that was almost 15 years ago. That one nonprofit led to United Way, and United Way of Detroit, Dallas, Kansas City, Worldwide, and all the others. For them, we took Clifton Strengths as a language and then coached senior leadership. We turned Clifton Strengths to the starting of onboarding. We created a high potential, high performer program. The participants used to call the program, I think So You Can Dance. So You Think You Can Dance was a big show at the time. So You Think You Can Be a Vice President was the name of the program. Clifton Strengths was the start, and they would build leadership development programs for themselves off their profiles. That led to Jeep and doing some work when they basically reformed the leadership team of Jeep Grand Cherokee after a crisis at the plant at JNAP. And then it was how to help management translate to the union in the ground. That as well led to Maserati, directors of marketing and management, which led to the Detroit Lions, vice presidents, trying to talk through how when they merged football operations and Ford Field operations, eventually leading to the Padres and now Team USA. I do a lot for Team USA throughout the year. And then again, we're ramping up into Tokyo. So I do a lot for USA Triathlon, things like that. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It was a connection to, they were doing work with Patrick Lencioni for 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and we kind of popped in Clifton Strengths when you talk about the trust element of 5 Dysfunctions. And so these pieces shaped, what could we do with Clifton Strengths? What are we capable of if our people knew what they bring and know what they need? And then this happened. Now, I did there's a few of my Afghan friends who will be seeing this. They logged in and signed up. This is 2014, I think. So it's towards the end or middle of my time. I started going to Afghanistan in 2010. So this happened. I got a phone call from somebody who said, hey, do you think you could do strengths-based development in fragile or conflict-affected environments? Could you come to Afghanistan? So in 2010, began the process of going into Afghanistan. It is deep inside of me. My Afghan students, last week I spent time still with Kabul University students. You're talking about character. They were laughing at this photo because I have mixed match scarves, and they literally said, sir, you look like Talib. But being there in Afghanistan, this happened. I did some work for Turquoise Mountain, and Turquoise Mountain is Prince Charles, one of his NGOs for artisans in Afghanistan. If you see the royal family in the UK wearing jewelry, oftentimes it's from Turquoise Mountain. We did some leadership development from then. Well, that led to this. The Afghan Ministry of the Interior The British Embassy was like, would you come in and help us do consulting and leadership development around our strategic plan the first time? And so this is me looking about as Afghan as I can get. And they always say, when you need a photo, do not smile. But it's interesting, that work there led me long-term to Nigeria. I did the same work for the British Embassy there, but I partnered up and met this amazing man named Isaiah, who became my business partner. And we have an NGO now. And this honestly is my heartbeat. And someday you're gonna hear a lot more about this. Andrew and I will be telling you this story. We now have an NGO that we own 7 sustainable farms. We have annual outreach for refugees. We did COVID support this year. And we have a FIFA registered professional football academy for 150 of the poorest kids in Plateau State. And it's my heart. And all of this though, challenged me to get to the core, to really ask that question. What could we accomplish if we didn't have to wonder what we bring and what we need? And this is where Clifton Strengths comes in. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect tool, but here's the deal. It can give you much more clarity. You know, the only way to really know the temperature of your oil is to stick your head into the engine. But you get a pretty good vibe off the temperature gauge, more so than the check oil light, right? What could you accomplish if you didn't have to wonder what your team brings and what they need? So this goes to our friend, Dr. Donald Clifton. People like to call him Don. And this comes out of a research project for this book, which is probably, in my mind, one of the best leadership books and management books out there. First, break all the rules. Don and his partner, Chip Anderson from Los Angeles. Chip was at Azusa Pacific and UCLA. They discovered they were both researching simultaneously what made people exceptional. Lightning storm here. What made people exceptional? They realized that after World War II, we really became focused on pathology. We wanted to know what was broken in us so we could fix it. So we went about cataloging our brokenness. We went about naturally kind of going, what's wrong with me? In fact, Don said, for every single study on what made you healthy psychologically, there were 14 studies on what made you crazy. 14 to 1. Because when you survey, Gallup surveys people every year, what do you think the key is to professional success? 70 to 74% of respondents say identifying your areas of greatest weakness and fixing them. Don wanted to find out if this was true. So they gathered up 80,000 individuals from 101 companies in 63 countries. Now, this was based on productivity, profitability, customer service, and turnover. These team leaders were the best, and they were from diverse environments. CFOs of Manhattan advertising agencies, chambermaids of the Disneyland Hotel. They wanted to know, what did these people have in common? At the end of the day, the one thing all 80,000 had in common was there was demographically nothing in common. Okay? Nothing. So that's the good news. There is no thing that makes you more or less likely to be successful. So there's nothing that you lack that gets in the way of you being high performing, because it's not about your personality. So what was it about? Because that's a waste of a lot of research otherwise. They dug into the research and they found something different though in the respondents. They discovered that the key to high performance was actually emotional engagement. High performance, people that were high performing seem to express high levels of emotional engagement in the majority of the tasks of their day. Now, how do you define emotional engagement? If you're a leader, emotional engagement is the holy grail of your team. I use it, my clients, we do Clifton Strengths and Q12 as our analytics for performance. So if you're working with me, we baseline and then take it again. Our Q12, it's the scientific emotional engagement survey. But here's the thing, if you want to boil this down to whether or not your people are engaged, here's the question. Engaged employees love what they do, love who they get to do it with, and want to do it more. They love what they do. They love who they do it with. They want to do it more. Ask yourself right now, Do you love what you do? Do you love who you do it with? Do you want to do it more? I'm not. This is where analytical drops in and says, Mike, it's called work for a reason, whatever. Like, here's the deal, though. I don't need you to be able to say that all the time. But 51% is the bar. You want your day to give you 1% more than it takes. What would you be capable of? How much resource would you have in your life if you really could say the majority of days, man, I loved what I did today. I sure loved who I did it with. I can't wait to try to do more tomorrow. What would your performance be like? Could you imagine that place that you're working in to make that happen? High performers were tied to emotional engagement. But what created emotional engagement? Instinct. Instinct was key. You needed to be able to use your gut. People that were emotionally engaged said they felt like they were in the flow. That was the world slows down. If you have Clifton Strength's theme of like strategic, high performing Major League Baseball players talk about with strategic, the pitch comes at them in slow motion. Now, obviously it doesn't, but their brain is so tuned that it slows things down. They have an instinct for how the pitch is coming across based on how the pitcher is lining up. So high performance was connected to emotional engagement, which was connected to instinct. And this gave birth to Clifton Strengths. Instincts encompass 3 beats: thought, feeling, and behavior. Things you think, things you feel, things you do. What if, Don and Chip said, they said, what if we could give people words to describe their instinctual thoughts, feelings, and behaviors so they could know what it was that would be life-giving if they could give it away to the world, and they know what they need from the world to keep giving it. Clifton Strengths is meant to be that. There's 34 total themes, so you're getting data points on those 34 themes, and those themes are just clusters of talent. For example, woo by itself is made up of smiling, saying hi, making eye contact. Each one of those is talents. Together they make woo. Now, focus makes eye contact, but they're looking for priorities. It's a different thing. So it's the unique mix of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior that give you all 34 talents. Okay? The Strengths Finder is a psychometric that is reassessed for accuracy every, I think it's 7 years. And it's been found to be accurate 98.9% test-retest reliability on the first set of results. If you're interested in knowing more about that, you can Google Strengths Finder 2.0 or Clifton Strengths validation report. The University of Kansas, I believe, puts it out. They'll give you the stats and all those pieces. But here's the other piece. It's so nuanced, the test, the assessment, that the chances of you meeting someone with your profile in the same order is 1 in 33.4 million. 1 in 33.4 million people. Think of that next time you look at somebody who works for you and say, I know just what you're thinking. There's uniqueness. And so this is why team leaders, you're not always gonna be able to be an expert on others, but what if your team was an expert on themselves, and they could talk to you? So, here's the deal. I want to show you Clifton Strengths domains, and then I want to apply it to a problem. And that's going to kind of bring us back together, and then we're going to do some Q&A. Clifton Strengths domains, all 34, they fall into 4 simple buckets. They found that statistically, they group. So maybe 34 is too much for you to know right now, but I'm going to walk through these 4 domains, and I want you to be thinking to yourself, or think of your people, which 2 domains do you fall into? Okay? Executing. People with executing themes, they like to get things done. They want to accomplish. They want to measure it. They want to pile it up. They feel the need to earn their shower and keep their promises. If it didn't get delivered and crossed off, it wasn't done. Meetings are not useful and valuable. Meetings are what's wasted while you're thinking of all the things that aren't being done. Vacations can be a nightmare for executing themes because they need active vacations. Stopping is not restful. Executing, they have a great sense of time. They know how long things will take. And so they bring work, effort, and results. Executing themes need, because Clifton Strengths, they tell you what you bring and what you need to keep bringing those strengths. What you need to keep those strengths strong. Executing, they bring results, effort, accomplishment, deliverables. They need clarity, time, Autonomy. Influencing themes. These people want to sell it, stretch it, catalyze it. They want to bend reality. They want to multiply it, push it, make it bigger than it was. They naturally know how to multiply information. They know how to get buy-in. They move people and projects. They take the stuck and make it unstuck. They bring momentum, they bring passion, and they bring traction. They need belief, they need freedom, and they need some autonomy. They like that. That's those things, when they start to feel pinched in, they stop bringing their vision as much. Relational themes. People with relational themes, they will naturally bring glue and grease. They hold us together and help us work smoothly. These people, they bring humanity. Who's being left out? What's the human impact of the project? What's the emotional resonance? They bring that. But they need to be seen as a person. If you're strategic thinking and you send an email with bullets without saying hi, they're exhausted. They may want to tell you about their vacation before they start the agenda for the day. Do you know that? Relational themes, they bring humanity. They need to be seen as human. Now, strategic thinking is the last one here. Strategic thinking, they're critical and creative. They break ideas into their core. They multiply them into being creative. Ultimately, one of the key pieces is how do you express? So with strategic thinking themes, one of the big things they want to do is they want to break the idea. So they bring planning, they bring great research, they bring new ideas. You know what they need from you? Time. Strategic thinking themes, we often ask them for their thoughts, but we don't give them time to think. If you want to know their processing, data in advance. If you have someone who's thinking themes on your team and you ask them, here's a slide, speak now or ever hold your peace, a lot of them will sit there and go, okay, I have nothing. Why? Because they haven't had thoughts. If you want participation, by the way, this is especially true for analytical context intellection, more so than ideation strategic. But those deep core thinking themes, critical thinking, they need time to process. Executing, measurement, accomplishment, they need deadlines and deliverables. Influencing, vision, passion, but they need trust. Relational, they bring humanity, but they need to be human to you. Strategic thinking, time, and intention. Now, I bring and I need. This is what, when people take Clifton Strengths, they get. You suddenly know, man, I need more of that person, what they're bringing. How do I get more of that? How do I invest in that? What do they need from me? So what I want to do is I want to walk you through something key. And in the next 12 minutes, and then when we get to the top of the hour, we'll do Q&A. In Gallup, in one of its most critical books, I think it's the second best book. First Break All the Rules is the best book. I like strengths books, but honestly, the data in First Break All the Rules is great. The next, though, is a book that came out last February. If you are a leader of any kind, it's called It's the Manager. It's based on a research project that they did with SHRM. It's the Manager is like, right now, it's like the research book for me. There's so much data about what people need. One of the sections is on all the research they did in onboarding. They interviewed and surveyed a whole collection of employees who were less than 6 months at companies and said, what's the most prominent questions? And what they found is that there are 5 questions that employees are secretly asking themselves in the first 6 months that will determine their engagement. They actually talk about this. The engagement of an employee is almost never higher than it is at month 6. So if you are really engaged, and by the way, all employees fall into 3 buckets: engaged, not engaged, or actively disengaged. Engaged, come early, stay late. Not engaged, they're satisfied with the job, but they're not engaged. If a better offer comes along tomorrow, they're out. Actively disengaged, they complain, they fight against you, they steal paper clips. Okay? You want engaged. The employee engagement level, just so you know, is the highest it's going to be at 6 months. You have 6 months to get these questions answered. I'm going to show you them all at once, and we're just going to walk through them a little bit. And I want to show you how each domain is going to impact how you might answer that. And so you want to know their themes, you can know how to better onboard them to get the answers that they need to increase engagement before it gets locked. Here's the 5 questions. By the way, I'm going to make this slide deck available. If you shoot me an email and you're like, I want the slides, I'll share this with you. Question number 1, what do they believe around here? Question number 2, what's my role? Question number 3, what are my strengths? Question number 4, who are my partners? Question number 5, what is my future? These are the questions from day 1. Most of the time, they're not saying it out loud. They don't know the culture. And here's the other thing. If they've just moved to your team, they're trying to figure out these things, even if it's the same company. They're not a new employee necessarily. Honestly, if you're a team leader, could you do worse than managing to these questions all the time? Because I would say that I meet people 6 years in a row who are still asking these. Let's walk through these in beats so you can see how these work different. What do they believe around here? The culture is going to be critical. If they're executing themes, they're looking to see, do your actions match your words? If you say, oh yeah, it's free time off or whatever, it's flexible time off, do what you want, and they see you penalizing someone for not working, your behavior is everything. Executing themes, your behavior is critical. What do they believe around here for influencing themes? Well, they're bringing vision. So you know what they're looking for? Do they believe in vision? Who's the keeper of vision? How do they set their targets? When it comes to relational themes, what do they believe around here? Are people a priority? They're looking for quality time. They're watching to see how you interact with your boss, even as you're their boss. Strategic thinking, they want to know where your processes are, the documentation, because it'll be revealed what you're intentional about. I was working with the U.S. Olympic archery team back before Rio, and they called me in to do just team cohesion piece work as they were cutting the team for those, because there's always more on the team that can go to Rio, can go to the games. And there's people who've been training on their own who then come in to the center and they're getting to know the people, and then they're suddenly on a team. There's 5 men, 5 women. I was doing one-on-ones. I'd done strengths, they knew them, and I do one-on-ones with the athletes and then meet with the coaches. Before I'd done a bunch, had gone well, I'm getting ready to meet with this woman, a brilliant archer, she's great, and one of the coaches dropped in on me and is like, hey, I just need to tell you, I really need you to talk to her. She's not taking feedback. Now, he's maximizer significant strategic. He sees it, believes it, just do it. It's very quick. It's thinking and influencing. She's not taking feedback. You got to fix this. So I was like, all right, I'll meet with her. And I said, what's the problem? She had recently, about 2 months probably before, increased her setup, which is like her bow, her setup, and they're weighted. She'd increased her weight and her performance had suffered. She's like, she needs to go back to her previous weight. I don't know why. I've said it. She won't do it. Help. I'm meeting with her. We're talking, we're engaged, we're just kind of going through it. And I built enough trust that I was like, hey, I heard you're struggling. Hey, I heard you changed weight. And I said, what's the barrier between you going back? And she's starting at this look and she's like, I can't go back. And I was like, okay, why? Now, she has individualization dominant. She sees people uniquely, wants to be seen uniquely. She also had belief, core values. She's presenting herself to the world with integrity. What the drop-in coach didn't know, while he was out of town, probably a month back, she was new on the team. Another head coach, in a group meeting, off the cuff said, anytime an archer struggles, they'll never do the work, they just blame the equipment. What is individualization here? If I do this, I'll be blamed. So literally, in that moment, her barrier was she was prioritizing perception over her athletic performance because her individualization belief was over-indexed. But he didn't know that. So he just thinks she's not taking feedback. Once we unpacked it, he's like, oh, so I don't need to tell her because she already knows. I need to help her understand that she can reframe this and make changes in a different way. What do you believe? What do you believe around here? If I was to watch your team, what would I think? What is my role? They want to know, do you know the role you hired them for? Especially executing themes. People with executing themes want to know, what exactly am I going to be measured for around here? Influencing themes, they're constantly wondering, am I going to get out of my lane? Because you let me, I'm going to run. Relational themes, they're wondering, like, are you sure? They want to hear clarity because they'll assume that they're wrong and you're right. Strategic thinking, again, how clear is your written plan for them? When it comes to your role, this makes all the difference. And especially this ties into strengths, because if you don't know my role, how can you know if my strengths are a fit? So you're already behind the ball. If your new employee doesn't understand, they're like, wait a minute, how can they possibly know my strengths if they don't know the role I'm playing? And are they a good fit? I had a situation. What are my strengths? A number of years ago at United Way in Detroit, the head of tickets, his name was Ralph. Some of you guys actually may even know him. Ralph knows I talk about this all the time, is that Ralph was IT. He was a genius at IT. He loved it, but I was like fascinated because the IT guy was like connectedness, empathy, developer, real relational interconnection themes. And I'm like, how is the IT guy so high performing in his role? I mean, we're talking email, broken networks, servers, backup drives. I mean, craziness. But he was. I remember coming back at like year 2 or something. I was there every month for like 3 years, and coming back and seeing him and walking by his desk, and he was miserable. Like, to the point of going, man, maybe I had to find something else to do at United Way here. And I was like, we're talking. Somebody, in a brilliant effort of streamlining, had made a change to the role. They had decided it was so much more efficient to submit tickets automated through the system. Here's my IT problem, which it was. But here's the problem. Do you know the best part of Ralph's job? His relational themes humanized the problem by going to the desk, making you feel comforted, and then going back. They took away the best part of his job. They took away the best part of what it is he does naturally. So suddenly his roles and strengths aren't a match. Here's next 2, and then I want to get to questions and comments. I just want to play live. So start stirring up your questions as we go. Who are my partners? Most teams are not focusing on creating relational collaboration. When we assess employee engagement, one of the key factors is on the Q12. It's 12 questions that we baseline teams with. One of them is, do I have a best friend at work? And people always freak out about this. But the reason why that question's in there is you are statistically more likely to be a high-performing team if you have a strongly agree answer to the question, do you have a best friend at work? This can start in the first 6 months. Who are my partners? You could actually, one of the most easy access things to do is starting to pair and loop people together, have coffee talks or things to start to see, and who partners. Now, to do this without guesswork is to be able to take Clifton Strengths blends. We have teams who will go, man, I am all about selling because I have influencing themes, and I sure love to get started. I hate to finish. So for me, my greatest partner are people who are executing. They help me not quit too soon. So Clifton Strengths shows not only relationally and strengths-wise, but also from a blind spot perspective. But friendships, human beings, this is going to be really, really key, ultimately. What do they believe around here? What's my role? What are my strengths? Who are my partners? What's my future? Most leaders are so focused on getting them in the door, they don't realize that in the first days, your employees are wondering if they're going to have to leave your door. I was talking to a client today, chief people officer at a startup, and we're talking about how there's a shift in the workplace. People are seeing themselves more as an economic product, not as something that they're going, yes, I'm going to be here. They're going, okay, either I'm going to get profit sharing, I'm going to get ownership. If I'm not, What am I going to get here that's going to get me there? Will I get training? Will I get development? Will I get prestige? What's my future? And executing themes, they're going to want their name on projects. They're going to want to be able to say, I instituted these plans. Influencers, they want to be able to do something that's going to be flashy and sell it. They know that the public market, being able to partner with the greats is going to be important to them. Relational, they're like, can I feel like I'm at home? Will these people care for me? Strategic thinking, they want to know that you have a written down plan, that you have written it down and documented it. What do they believe around here? What's my role? What are my strengths? Who are my partners? What's my future? What are you capable of if you didn't have to wonder what your team brings and what they need? Gallup found that people that use Clifton Strengths, on the low end, they just did Clifton Strengths, they did language. On the high end, it's a 3-year program that I roll out with clients, and Gallup does it as well with their people. They found high turnover organizations for the 3-year program, 72% less attrition. 72%. These are from the high turnover teams. 7% higher engagement. 19% increased sales. 29% increased profit. Could you use 30% more profit? And could you use the savings of having less turnover? What could you accomplish if you didn't have to guess who your team is and what they need? Clifton strengths-based cultures target leadership and investment based on data, not aspiration. Are you ready to stop guessing? This is the question I ask leaders most of the time, because people have typically taken Clifton Strengths before I get there. But I'm like, but are you really using it as data to target what you need? Now what? Well, if you are interested in kind of doing that with your team, I would tell you, you don't even have to hire me necessarily. There's 3 beats Gallup has found that will get those results you saw on that slide. You need common language around your teams. You need leaders to know this language and lead from it. And then performance management. This is where we deep dive how you do rewards, recognition, and keep the focus on business outcomes. And so there's a whole package here. But you can start with language. You can take Clifton Strengths on your own, but it makes more sense if you hire a certified coach or someone who's done this. I spent 16 years pulling these pieces together. And for those who want to go beyond just the language and like the team leadership and the development, and you're really courageous, I also take clients to Patagonia and Nepal. We're about to announce this week. I started in 2013, taking clients to Patagonia to go, if I could remove you from your world and you could remember how strong you are, how would you reframe what you're capable of? This is one of our clients choosing to get lowered into a glacier waterfall to test her own boundaries. Patagonia, first week in November. Nepal, Everest Base Camp, that is, first week of May. If you're ready to be able to have your team tell you what they bring and what they need, instead of expecting you to know, email me tonight. Don't wait. It's no commitment. Just shoot me a message. I'm happy to get on the phone. Michael@michaeldoffany.com. Michael _ Doffany on Instagram if you're out there. LinkedIn, obviously, for a lot of you. Where did the data come from? Almost all of it comes from Gallup information. Here's the books I really like. First, Break All the Rules. It's the Manager. Strengths-Based Leadership. Gallup Journal. It's a great thing to get a free newsletter. I have a weekly podcast on Spotify and Apple. My book, Extraordinary, the World Sold You a Map. But what you need is a compass. What could you accomplish if you stopped having to wonder what you bring and what you need? What your team brings and what you need. Thanks for being here. Let's take some time and check in. Any thoughts and questions? I'm going to stop the share here and let Katie in. Katie?
That was awesome.
Thank you so much for being in there with me. Thanks for managing the chat. Do we get any questions or comments from folks in there?
Yeah, giving us lots to think about. So I compiled a few questions that I think will be great for the group. There's one that's specific about someone's profile, one about a domain question, and even one that's more broad about really getting their directors engaged. So I don't know if you have a preference.
Let's start with the domain question.
Absolutely. So Sholi asked if you have suggestions for what kind of work is suitable for people with the dominant strategic thinking domain.
And so, okay, here's the thing about strategic thinking. The challenge is that in my world, I would break it into two, because the strategic thinking domain is actually critical and creative. And so, if you're still out there, Shelley, if you could put out what exactly are your strategic thinking themes, because analytical intellection really different than ideation strategic. So, we'll give you a second to drop that in. Is it out there anywhere? She's still here?
Yeah, she's saying creative.
More creative, so like ideation, strategic, input, learner, those themes?
Perhaps, yeah, you can feel free to drop them if you have.
You got them out there?
Yeah, she's saying yes, so you're on the right track.
Cool. So, because those themes are more about possibilities. So that's like creative. It's the ability to actually go possibilities. So for you, your brain is going, when I get an idea, I think possibilities more than closure. So for you, what you're going to need to know is like, what does your themes, when you bring that to the table, when you offer that to the world, where does it need to be offered? When you bring creativity, does it have to fit into a process? Does it need to have a handoff or an outlet? Who do you need to partner with to take your ideas from outside the box to a deliverable? Because they may be able to bring the structure that you can then pour yourself into and not have to create it yourself. So research, art, creativity, innovation, strategic thinking, design, the creative themes, you're naturally great at creating possibilities.
Yeah, that's great. Sticking with strategic domain question a little bit. So Derek's question, he gave us his profile. So I'm going to hit you with it here.
Yeah.
Learner, ideation, restorative,
okay,
achiever, strategic. Learning, ideation.
Yep.
Restorative, achiever, strategic. So we're looking at, strategic thinking again, domain, a little bit executing. His question is about selling specifically. So how do I introduce myself? How do I do what I do in selling?
Yeah. And so part of the piece of knowing this, when it comes to selling, is this idea of you've got to know what will be your bulletproof spot. When it comes to selling, what is that thing that you're like, I'm not going to be caught off guard. Gallup found, but there are a couple different pieces. There's a book called Strengths-Based Selling. And in that book, one of the takeaways was that there are a couple elements of selling that end up being really important. And they are feeling like the customer needs to feel like you understand their problem. So you need to have relational or emotional themes enough to connect. And then you've got to have a thing that will close the deal. So often it's influencing or executing themes, maximizer, achiever, things like that. But then you need something that is going to be about connecting with the customer. Looking at your profile, restorative in here. So one, when it comes with an achiever strategic, with achiever strategic, you're likely to be methodical. Like it's going to need to, here's a plan. I run my contact list. I do this. So you're going to have things you need to check off and kind of engage. Even the relational pieces need to be check-off pieces. But then when you connect with them, if you can, with as much empathy as you can muster, tell them the problem you see. Restorative. If you have restorative out there, you nearly have a sixth sense for seeing things before they break. You'll see it first. So if you can work your system to get your funnel going and then tap into your restorative, you'll see problems early. And so that's where people go, man, he really gets my problem. He really gets my focus. And so then I go, well, if he gets the problem I'm having and he believes, and that's the other piece too, restorative, you believe nothing is too broken to be fixed, we will borrow your belief until we get our own. So what you want to do is muster not only the solution, before you get the problem out of your mouth, you want to express mass confidence about how you believe it's going to be okay. Do your funnel methodically, and then when you get that meeting, listen, point out problems, and point out nothing but confidence that you can navigate it. That's a key for sales.
Yeah. Okay, so I just got another one from Nikki with a specific profile because we love seeing you do your thing. And then Vinicius, I know you're still here, so then I'll throw Mike your general question about implementation. So Nikki's are, and I know you see that, strategic, positivity, ideation, relator, and communication. So she knows she's kind of a 50-50 split of strategic and relational.
Yeah.
So questions about maximizing her 5 as a core leader on her team.
Yeah. And so again, communication is about creating understanding. People with communication, it's not about speaking, it's about helping others feel understood. So your ability to do 2 things, to merge understanding and then rapid innovation. So you may find, what's interesting is you actually may find there's almost 2 speeds to how you engage. Think about communication. Communication, which is one of my themes as well, communication sees the world as a narrative, a beginning, a middle, and an end. There were stories, there's pieces, here's how this works. These characters went on this journey, this terrible thing happened, here's the result. So there's times when I drop something to you and you may not be right on board because I haven't given you the whole story. I need to tell you, here's the story. So you may ask more questions than I want, but just so you know, as soon as you do know, your brain's like, well, how do we solve this? When you're clear on the arc, you're like, which line of Costco is moving faster? Which line of traffic? We can do this, come on team. So your ability to mobilize around an innovative idea is gonna be really important. And so those 2 themes, expression, the ability to pivot and be responsive, that's gonna be huge. By the way, I'm a big believer in knowing the dark side. People ask me all the time, what about weaknesses? The weaknesses are the exact same list. Your dark side is when you misuse your themes. So for me, I call it over-indexing. You know in the index of a book, there's too much of something? When your themes get over-indexed, meaning you're using too much of your themes, it can be disruptive. Strategic, you're great at solving problems. Solve the right problem. Don't just solve the problem in front of your face. And so if you're like, well, here's what they're feeling, here's how I have to express that, is that really the priority? Don't get hooked. Gather the data, bring us with you, because you'll often be ahead of us. But your ability to move us and recruit us and help us see, brilliant.
Love it. Awesome questions here. You guys are getting the upfront with exec coach here. So Vinicius, and if I'm butchering your name, I'm just going to call you
Vina.
Yeah.
It's Vina.
So he wants to know how to keep his board of directors, members of his nonprofit engaged, excited, and moving forward.
By the way, his vice chair of his nonprofit, by the way, which is called Next Up, we're a skateboard foundation in Los Angeles. I'm his vice chair. So you show up in my workshops, Vina. That's how that works. Ultimately, it's going to be one of these things, right? And it's funny. I actually do board retreats for clients. So, like Vina would say, is that when you're actually planning a board, if you are a nonprofit or you work in a nonprofit or in a school setting, a board is critical. You need to know, much like hiring for an employee, what does each board member bring? What's the piece they bring to the pie? And then are they in the right strengths for it? Because the number one reason for nonprofits to fail is board mismanagement. Either they're too involved or they're under involved. And so it's almost always a board getting in the way. So as Vina knows, a well-focused board that's emotionally engaged and backing things up, it's going to be important. Thanks for asking, V. I'll try to be more engaged.
So Jennifer, regarding Q12, because you mentioned Q12, and maybe you can even just say, quickly what that is, but tips for moving from results to a real action plan to improve engagement at a company. It's not just taking it. What do we do with it?
Yep. The action plan, language, leaders, performance management. So Clifton Strengths usually gets tossed together by itself. No, it's caught in the ground. I think 25 million people have taken Strengths now. It's the whole point though was to create emotional engagement. And so taking the assessment organization-wide gives you the common language. But to really start it then, you then have to go, leaders, do you know how to leverage Clifton Strengths to initiate performance conversations? And that's the key. So we typically do strengths, then do just leadership development, strengths-based leadership, turning managers into coaches. And then on top of that, and by the way, we take Clifton Strengths and Q12, which I'll talk about Q12 in a second. That happens first. Then we build a plan. Our Q12, so Q12 looks like this. It is the 12 questions that Gallup found are statistically relevant to measure whether your employees are engaged, not engaged, actively disengaged. Engaged, come early, stay late. Not engaged, This, by the way, is the satisfied employee. Some of you guys know I say a lot about this. People are like, yeah, I'm satisfied. That is not an engaged employee. A satisfied employee means today's job is enough, and if tomorrow a better job comes along, I'm out of here. Are you satisfied or are you engaged? What you want is engaged. Satisfied is just flip a coin. Actively disengaged is fighting you. We give Clifton strengths. Then we measure to baseline what is the engagement level of the staff. And the engagement questions are based on individual needs. So basic needs, individual needs, team needs, culture needs. Me, you, us. Based on the scores, we build a plan for how to coach and train the leadership. Then we need to tear apart and look at how you're measuring performance, because there's beats to performance. Are you focused on business outcomes? Are you doing strengths-based conversations with your team? Do you know how their data of their themes impact rewards and recognition? Are you doing praise and celebration often? Language around strengths in Q12. Then we develop a plan based on results. Then we make the paperwork and systems match that. It's almost a 3-year walk. Average return, just so you know, Gallup found, corporations that did this, you not only do you make back all the money you invested, you make about $1,500 per employee for over 3 years if you actually would engage language, leaders, performance management.
Oh, good. All right, some more profiles. This will be fun. So You've mentioned several domains. Josh is hitting us with his influencing themes.
Bringing his command. Josh has got command.
Yeah, so command, competition, communication, maximizer, and focus. And this is his quote. Hey, it seems to make me a dictator, but that doesn't seem enticing. So what are your thoughts?
So, yeah, it's the reality is it could be. Yeah, it really could be. The trick is make sure that we are winning, not you. So command, by the way, the rarest of all themes, actually goes back and forth. I think self-assurance is up again in the last cut I saw. Command and self-assurance are the two rarest themes and strengths. So this is the one that shows up the least. It is the most leadership-driven, organized, somebody should be in charge. Competition. People with competition are not necessarily interested in winning. They're about winning in comparison to the best. So they're always looking for the bars and benchmarks. What game are we playing? Communication, wanting to be understood. Wanting to really, truly create understanding and leading and moving people. Maximizers are going to be all about standards. If they hit their goals, they think they didn't set them high enough. They're always being pushed. Last one, focus. They're like a bullet in flight. So what's going to be really important, Josh, ultimately is, what game are you playing? Knowing the moments when you are competing with the people around you, when you're comparing down. There's a great book called An Everyone Culture. Ray Dalio, some of you guys know, Principles. He's a great, he owns Bridgewater Capital, among other things, but he wrote Principles is like 75 hours long or whatever. Has a lot of great thoughts, though, on leadership. But there's a book called Everyone Culture, and they talk about the evolution of teams from me winning to us, to me competing with you, us competing with the other companies, the other departments of the team, our company competing with the rest of the market, us competing with ourselves. What are we capable of? Josh, you'll be as healthy as the benchmarks you choose to compare against. Pick them carefully. Give yourself short-term targets. Be as kind to yourself as possible. Find something worth sacrificing for. Command does best when they have a cause worth sacrificing for. Hope that helps.
So good. I wish there was like a cap on what you're saying. A couple of those things were clutch. Okay, so you talked about Nikki, who had strategic positivity, ideation leader. So her partner is Jessa, and she said that she has restorative, command, competition, significance, and individualization. Their partners leading a team. How do they maximize their relationship to best serve?
What's the last one?
Last one is individualization.
Individualization.
Yeah. And Nikki was in the strategic relational.
Okay.
Yeah.
She had positivity communication, yeah?
Yep.
Nikki? So, restorative, the good news is they see problems first. The dark side is they see problems first. Not that it's bad, but we will often misunderstand why you're pointing out problems. Just so you know, restorative, if you're accused of being negative, it's because for the rest of the world, when we don't want to do something, we start with the problem. For you, problems aren't bad. You're just stating, oh, there's a left-hand turn. For us, when we don't want to do something without the problems. So when you start from the problem, we'll make negative assumptions. So what's interesting is, I'm hoping the two of you have found a way to work. Individualization is going to be your key to partnering with Nikki, because when you turn that on, she feels seen by you. Okay? Just so you know. So, she says we love each other. She's my work BFF. That's what I need to hear. You guys are a great pair. Because I don't know what you're doing, but you will mobilize each other. Who is it? So it's Nikki and
Jessa.
Jessa, here's the deal. Your ability to navigate difficult situations is exceptional. Your ability to do things that are hard, okay? You're gonna be like unafraid. You also wanna make sure you're doing things that last. So you're setting direction, you're setting passion for what you want. When it comes to Nikki, she's going, okay, let me translate that back. Let me translate that back to other people. So if she trusts you, she's going to let you dream. You have very intense themes. I have them as well. I've significance to number 6. Here's the deal. When our influencing themes are focused in on us, it can be caustic. But there's crazy power when they focus out. Significance is one of those themes where it's like when you read it, you're just like a name dropper crazy person. Don't you know that I work with so-and-so? And so that was my fancy slide of all my clients. Yes, I've been to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's about me. Significance though, but here's the thing. I've seen team leaders with significance. When they pivot to their team and you go, wow, Jessa's like, look at this. Man, here's all the noise. This is what's special. People are so afraid of missing out doing things that matter that when you cut to the noise, Jessa, and you tell us what's significant, you can influence us in ways that we don't expect, and we may not expect. Influencing themes are often like power tools. Wield them carefully and for the good of others. Partnering up, the good news is Jess is going to make sure you take more risks than you really think. Nikki's going to help you navigate and make sure people understand. Like it's the connection of those two leadership pieces. Partnering, I want the two of you though to have somebody who likes to staple and fold and focus on details. This is navigation. This is not, I really like to make sure the paper is filed properly and the reports are filled out. Not so much. You need somebody who likes to, I call it staple and fold and dot the I's and cross the T's. But together, brilliant.
That's awesome. And Dana mentioned that this duo that you're talking about works for Dutch Bros. So big franchise. Nice. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. A little different of a turn. And then we do have a couple more people who are wanting you to do their
Just so you know, guys, I'll stick on as long as you guys want. So, say 8:30's coming up, but I'll hang around if you have questions. So
awesome. That's so much. So Andrew threw in a great question. He said, if it's all about the manager, because we've heard that, right? And you're not a manager, how do you recommend using your strengths profile to achieve the mission? And how do we help the manager know what we bring and what we need using our strengths? Yeah.
And so there comes a point. So it's back to and so when Gallup does all this language, they kind of minimize this. I feel like, no offense, guys, love you. One of the key pieces though, is that it's not enough to know what you bring and what you need. You have to be in a good fit. And so every time you're not a good fit, you're having to restrain part of your talents in some ways. And so you've got to ask yourself, how long can you restrain that? So now there are ways where you're like, look, I'm not gonna quit my job. I don't have time right now. So you have to know what other theme needs are things that you could maybe get met outside of your work, your role. And for example, learners. If you have learner in your top 5, But you found, so learners, their greatest fear is boredom. A learner, they love the ramp up of a new job. The minute it becomes repetitious, they're like, I'm out. Every 18 to 24 months. Learners, you love the act of learning. This is why every time you hit a pivot in your life, your first thought is, maybe I should get another degree. But if you're not going to quit your job and you're trying to actually get through your job space and have that learner be fed, learner's a great theme to give you energy and make you feel strong. This is where you research vacations you're going to take, instruments you're going to learn. That'll fill it for a while. But here's the challenge. I'm certified in Donald Miller's Business Made Simple stuff. So I use Clifton Strengths as the leadership development and personality tools. I use the business framework tools, mission, communication, negotiation to frame this out. But we start clients with Hero on a Mission. One of the things that we talk about is the existential crisis that occurs when you don't have a cause worth living for. You will tolerate where you are for now if your cause is feeding your family, and that's great. But just so you know, you need to be stockpiling your energy and your resources for the moment you have another option, you can make that move. Some of you, the greatest thing you can do to begin to plan to leave is to be in a savings fund. Because time and money are the things that hold you back from starting your own companies. And people will say to me, I have this dream. And I'm like, cool, show me your wallet. How I spend money and how I spend time are the nuts and bolts of me then living a dream. So if I'm not in a place that is calling me to an existential vision, it's calling me to a future, I then have to go, wait a minute. What is my own mission? And it might be somewhere else. What do I have to do to be ready to be that? Because it's not necessarily the do. One of the things we talk a lot about is who do I need to be? It's not about doing it as much as who do I need to be in order to make that happen.
Oh, yes. So good. We've got another couple of profiles, but this comment is so good. So people are, really feeling seen by you, Mike, and the things that you're saying. And of course, this is a powerful tool. And also just what, Michael brings to light is just so powerful. But Jennifer's husband wrote in her chat and said, hey, Jen is a learner. She just fell off the couch. She just applied to 2 education programs. That's the answer. Whenever they're stuck, that's the answer. Oh, I gotta get another degree. Okay, know why you're getting the degree before you spend all that money. Like have an idea of what's the cause in my life that needs that degree. Like nothing wrong with a degree, but like that's the answer. Oh, I hate my boss. Sign up for an online MBA. Yeah, be intentional. All right, so Sonia, here's her profile for you.
All right, what do we got?
Strategic, achiever, command,
okay,
activator,
okay. And
we haven't talked about this one yet, futuristic. So she's wanting to know any tips for her profile.
Yeah. So the good news, strategic activator, which means that you're not going to miss an opportunity. Okay? You're going to be on that. People with strategic is assess, select, strike. Activator and strategic are very similar. They're rapid and responsive decision-making, strategic, action, activator. So the good news is, depending upon what you're doing, you're going to be responsive and it's going to be quick and you're going to get a lot done and you're going to be able to move. The trick may be you may at times be ahead of people. Now, you have command so that if they trust you, great, but they may not feel included. So the good news is when you see what's need to be done, you can solve it quick. Back to my comment again, solve the right problem. One of the things we talk about when we do the language part of language leaders and performance management, rolling out our company culture plan, is HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That is the greatest influence on whether or not your talents are used as strengths or basically weaknesses. For you, you're likely to lead really well. One of the key pieces is going to be clear on how hungry, angry, lonely, tired you are so you can be not too responsive, not too aggressive. Futuristic, though, is really interesting because futuristic always sees what's possible, the upgrade. Now, this could be from a personal performance to a sandwich. You could go, man, this kid who's volunteering and interning at our company, he could totally be this. She could be the CEO. Like, totally, ultimately. Futuristic. You also go to a restaurant, eat a sandwich, and think, I love this sandwich, but it'd be great if they added pickles. potential. So you're always looking towards what could be. Sometimes if you're leading and you overexpress the potential before the moment's over, I think you're being critical and not liking a thing. I don't realize that you like the sandwich. You're just saying you should add pickles. Here's the other piece. You can tell me what the future looks like in so much detail that I believe you. You're influential. And then you know how to get me started. But during the dog days of summer in the middle, when I'm aligning and complaining about keeping going, that's not going to be really your spot. You're going to set a target and bring us along. You want responsibility arranger to have made the plan. You want developers to have done the jumping jacks and the hiking exercises to make sure people were fit. And you want positivity woo to keep them optimistic while you're going. You kind of set the targets, but I want you partnering with executing and relational to get the plan in place. Also, don't leave learnings on the table, because you'll run past a moment going, well, next, and not go, I don't want to look backwards. Things backwards are exhausting. Receipts, deadlines, reports, looking backwards, that's hard for us with Activator. We're like, so do stuff in the moment, don't leave it. You put it off, you're going to dread it more the longer you wait. Activators, procrastinate. But you're going to move us, stay on track, healthy.
So good. All right, this might be a couple more questions. Right. Let's do a profile, and Sarah brings up a great question within her profile. So I'll have you write down. Significance.
Okay.
Activator. Achiever. Arranger.
Yep.
And strategic. So Sarah specifically is considering a position as chief of staff or director of operations. So wanting to know if these strengths really align with these roles. And it also kind of opens the question for you about, how strengths sort of indicate careers and goals and things like that. So
say again, what's the role she's up for?
Chief of staff or director of operations, considering those positions. Yeah.
I mean, what is beautiful about a ranger significance in a profile like this, rangers are air traffic controllers, right? They're three-dimensional decision makers. They have a very simple goal with a very complex job. The simple goal, planes in the air should get to the ground, planes in the ground should get to the air, nobody should die, okay? How can they pull that off in being so complex? The goal is very clear. So they bring multi-dimensional thinking, but they need clarity about the end. So the role of being staff, kind of overseeing staff, with significance, knowing who's the right person in the right seat, and then having the authority to juggle it, that's going to be key for you. The systems, the plan, going to be terrific. I want you partnered up with people who are also doing the relational pieces. I want relators and developers around you, because they will keep the team healthy and growing. It is always cheaper to develop talent than buy it. So for you, you're going to be you maybe find you're focused in on, look, I got planes in the air or they need to get to the ground. I don't have time to train the gate agent at the airport. You want somebody to do that. Developer, responsibility, achiever, positivity, things that see people and can give them the developmental steps. But significance arranger, significance knows who's best. They see strengths. Arranger, who goes together. Also, if you start, you're going to be flexible when the goal is clear. When it's not, if you find yourself not flexible, usually a sign you need a break. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So within that, partner up. Did I hit the question in the midst of that, Katie?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, she just wanted some general tips. And I think that partnership is such a great question. And some of the strengths that you even talked about partnering with are in Dana's profile. And she's wanting a little bit of a tip here. She shares 4 of my same 5. So I'm excited about this one. So her first one is activator. That's one I don't have. My 10. Developer, communication, positivity, and woo. So Dana is running a small business, and she wants to know what areas to look out for, especially with no executing strengths. The struggle's real, Dana. We get it.
Yeah. So with relational themes, if you have positivity, connectedness, empathy, I began partnering with this brilliant woman named Angela Robles. She and I we're doing work with the Baltimore Orioles together, as well as USA Diving. And she is all relational themes except for belief. But she's an academic. She's a doctor, PhD at Azusa Pacific. She went to Notre Dame, and she's written academic work on Clifton strengths and sport and other things. And I was asking her yesterday, how do you get work done relationally? She said, every task when I'm working on something has a timer. And when the timer is done, the name and a picture sometimes pop up that will be the person impacted if I miss the deadline. The key to getting relational themes to activate is you don't just put the deadline of a project, a task, or a thing. You put the person's name, and if you have a picture, it's even better. Because that's going to humanize. Otherwise, your brain shuts out relational if you're dominant. But again, we got developer, communication, positivity, woo. Comms is in influencing, but it's also relational. What can happen is your brain goes people first, then tasks, then thinking. So if you can tie people to tasks, it gets pulled into the first grouping. So if you want to mobilize, you will feel that, you'll feel this thing matters because there's a person attached. Make people lists, not just task lists. It'll kind of help you get the activities. Dark side, positivity, developer, do not avoid pain. Too much time in a negative space, and before you know it, you can get almost like in a crouch, and you don't know how to straighten up. The answer, as you're navigating, you'll be like, I have two paths. Which path has no pain? That's the path I take. That's not you. That's you being beat down, not feeling understood, especially if you've moved, if you made transition. Finding a rhythm where your town feels like you, the people around you feel like you. If you're at a new job, like communication, you won't feel yourself until you feel understood. And if you have any transition in your life, that's when avoidance of pain kicks in. That's okay, but be ready to go, my goal should be, this is my resilience theme. Do whatever it takes to start to feel understood, communication, so that then you can stop avoiding pain and actually start to go, I can prioritize people on my list. But your ability to pull people together and then go march, like it's growth. People say, why would you invest in those people? You will never give up on a team. Man, they may not get it, but if they get closer to it, it's enough. People with developer will say to me, I love teaching kindergarten and I love teaching first and second grade. And I'm like, why? How can you do the monotony of 1 + 1? I had this woman named Linda say, I'm teaching them how to cure cancer. And I was like, what? She's like, if they can't do math well now, they won't do chemistry and they won't cure lymphoma. Developer, your ability to put the big pieces in now, even while somebody else may get the glory later, the fact that you're okay with that makes you powerful to us.
So good. I feel like you're coaching me still. You've been coaching me for years and I still got something out of that. So the high relational themes, attaching the task to someone, right? And if it's a mundane, awful task, who is it impacting? Who's going to be doing this? What influence will this make in the world? That's so good. I also just being around people. If I don't want to clean out the kitchen, but my husband's right there doing the dishes, I'm going to do it. I'm around.
Relational proximity is everything, right?
Yeah, that's the term.
Relational proximity.
One more profile that I see, and then I think that's what we've got. Right. So, Jolie is back with her specific strengths. So she wants some tips as well. So we've got maximizer.
All right.
Maximizer, positivity, strategic, ideation, and connectedness. And then she also threw out that that learner is in there. Maybe the second time she took it, she also had learner. Okay. So just specific tips about her profile.
Yeah, so maximizer, influencing theme. One of the genius things about maximizer is the ability to set standards, to extract value. I don't know if you're the person who knows how to go to Marshall's or something and get like the super expensive thing that people don't realize is actually way underpriced. Your ability to deliver value, it can be that much, but you like quality. Watch out for being really hard on yourself. Maximizers have extremely high standards you may never even say out loud. Just so you know, your ability to challenge us, like when you put a team together of high performers, when you have a goal, you're going to be motivated. If you're working for somebody, though, who lowers their standards, you sign up to be what people say, let's be champions. With every decrease of their standards, well, yeah, we said that, we didn't really mean it. Your desire to be there goes away. More and more and more. your standards lower. As they lower their standards, your motivation goes away. Maximizers competing against themselves. So that's one of those pieces where, competition crosses the finish line. They look over their shoulder, who they beat. Maximizer running crosses the finish line, looks at their watch. Did they beat their own personal time? So when you pull these pieces together, your ability to rally us to a goal, your ability to make us believe that what we do matters, it's going to be profound. That's where you're going to be at your best. Connecting and challenging us, and then pulling triggers and getting us going. Come on, we can do this. Partner up with people who can handle the boring logistics part. I don't know what you do, but I want you to partner up with people. There are people who love to organize, to create rhythms. You're moving us. You're driving us. You're challenging us. Also, solve the right problem, strategic, but here's the thing. Strategic ideation is known to drive home different ways at night because they get bored driving the same way. Like, do I need to be innovative? It's the same thing with our themes all the time. Am I using my themes to serve me or the project? Does this project really need me to use my strategic ideation to really be innovative? Or am I so bored that I don't want to demand change? Ultimately, that's the way that starts. And so, am I serving myself? Am I serving the project? Kind of keeps your themes in balance. Partner up with achievers and people who can do developer. Let somebody else teach them how to dribble. You don't want to teach the basics. You just want the cream of the crop you can pick from so you can organize.
Yeah, and she even said it's so true that she has a champion intention always.
Yeah, got to be the very best. Does that wrap us up there?
Those are the other questions that I see.
Awesome.
Awesome rapid fire coaching.
You guys are great out there. So here's the thing, everybody. So one, I'm just glad you're on here. So I don't care if you want to be a client or not. If you're here, somewhere out there is somebody like me who's eating themselves to death, maybe drinking themselves, who's scared to death to talk. And if you ask them, they don't even know. You could end up being the only voice that lets them ask the question, what am I really capable of again? If you're investing in your team and in yourself and you're like, I can't seem to get my startup off the ground. I can't quit my job. I don't have a plan. I'm sick and tired all through the pandemic of saying, oh gosh, I want to do something different. You want to talk about that? Let's do that. Shoot me a message. We can spend 30 minutes on the phone. We'll talk your Clifton strengths and next steps. If you want to talk about your own business, coaching, consulting, or maybe you want to spend $5,000 and come to Nepal, come to Patagonia with me in November, I can talk to you about that too. But please, shoot me a message sooner rather than later. Let's talk. Don't let a week go by on this. If you are interested, we're going to take the guesswork out of communication the week of May 20th. Please bring your friends and neighbors. We're going to do more Clifton Strengths. We're going to talk about how do Clifton Strengths data impact how you communicate and create team cohesion. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. Thank you so much for playing host and navigating the crew for me. Hope to hear from you guys. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Bye, all.